Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest, Peter Costakos from Cross Country Mortgage. Peter's been a marketing partner of mine for the last couple of years, and wanted to have him on because there's so much going on in the world today of lending that he can talk about that. And also I'm talking about connecting people. And that's kind of what ventures of crazy things go on. I just wanted to bring Peter on pretty quickly and see what's going on in his world. So Peter, thank you for taking the time out of your day for coming on the show. And obviously I love working with you. And I know that you have a bunch of stories from a lot of things that we did. And I just wanted to thank you.
We have a few stories, yes. I think we've been working together since, if I have it right, since about 2018. We've had some phenomenal clients. I think what we do best is, especially between you and I, we work together, we solve a lot of problems. And I think that's one of the biggest things we bring to the table is we take care of people and we solve a lot of problems and we do everything for them.
You've been in the business 20 plus years. I don't even want to say 30, although
Almost 30.
It's almost 30 years.
I'm closing in on 30, yes.
I'm like in my 8th year. So you have more than triple experience and plus. But tell me a little bit about your journey and, where have you been? What have you done? And maybe things that were different before and what they are now, just to give us a little background of what your job entails.
Okay, so let's go way back. When I first got into the business, or before I first got into the business, I knew a couple things. I had a couple requirements, a couple things that were non-negotiables for me. I wanted to work hard without having a boss looking over my shoulder and telling me what to do every day. I wanted to essentially kill what I eat, right? And I also wanted to have an impact on people's lives. The first thing I ever thought of doing was becoming an agent. I was an agent for a total of 3 months. And I think I was a little bit young to be an agent. It wasn't for me. Another mortgage person had said, hey, it's the agent that finds people the houses. Mortgage person gets people into the house. And it kind of just aligned with all my goals, all my requirements. And it didn't hurt that I was able to get benefits from the beginning. So right. I did that, and I found that I loved dealing with people. I loved the problem solving. I loved being able to do a mortgage that 9 people couldn't do, and all of a sudden I figured it out. Like that stuff is really cool. Within a couple of years, I managed a branch. I took a little stint. I went to wholesale, which makes me a little bit more well-rounded. I worked, instead of working with mortgage instead with clients, I worked on the B2B side, business to business, and I realized quickly that was probably one of my biggest failures. Although it helped me become well-rounded and got me a much better resume, I realized that clients are where I want to be, and it made things, to put into perspective, it gave me the clearness that I needed to figure out, hey, this is my role. Fortunately, I made a few good moves. Now we have an organization where we have 80 to 90 loan officers within a group of one of the biggest companies in the country. So Carbon Team is the biggest team in the country and the biggest mortgage company in the country. So kind of pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. You talked about the problem solver. And what's interesting is one thing is you have to solve so many problems so that your clients don't even know that they're problems. Like that, isn't that? And so you enjoy that, or is it a little frustrating that you actually you don't really get credit for a lot of what you do? It's like making sausage, right? Nobody wants to see how sausage is made, but you want to eat it, right? And that might be like this process a little bit. It's making the sausage, right? Where at the end of the day, people just want to get to a closing table, and there's a lot of legal requirements, constraints from the lenders, and it's difficult. But like you're back there looking at what's going on and trying to ahead of what might be an issue and then solve that. So how do you do that?
So I tell them, I agree. I love that sausage making analogy. However, I think it would be a big miss if you had challenges with a client and you didn't explain to them what their challenges were. You don't want to freak. It's a delicate dancing act. You don't want to freak them out. You want to identify, here's your problems, here's my solution. Don't worry, we're going to be okay. And that's how I go about it. There's many loans that have come to me that have failed elsewhere. There's many loans that, when people are shopping around, you kind of have to identify when people do have challenges. It would be a big, big miss if you want to make it smooth, but you also want to let them know that, hey, I'm the one that actually did this. And if you don't say it, I think you're just missing out. And the reason why they decided to go with you in the first place is because you caught stuff like that.
You also is like when we're marketing partners, it's difficult. Somebody comes to us and they want potentially a loan or something like that. And I try to get you in front of them, and then they can go and maybe shop it, right? They price shop it. And it's kind of like if you needed heart surgery, would you price shop, what surgeon's going to do the surgery, or do you really want to go to people that get it done and that are the best? And while obviously buying homes and getting loans is not heart surgery, though it is a very important, it's generally buying a house is the most expensive thing that a home, that a person's going to do probably throughout their lifetime. So it is that important. And so it does matter who you work with. All mortgage lenders are not the same, right?
Yeah. I'd say that, when I speak to a client, I encourage them to shop because I would think I'd be a hypocrite if I did it. And I'll tell clients that I expect you to shop. I'm actually looking forward to them shopping because I think that the majority of the time, there's definitely mortgage people will tell you not to shop. I'm the only person. Don't talk to anybody else. I think that lack of transparency is not going to you're not going to be really true to your client if you actually don't encourage them to talk to somebody else. What I'm hoping when they speak to somebody else is that they don't get my vibe. They see the other person doesn't know as much as me. One thing that I do that differentiates me in the early on is that I go over numbers, but I actually go over numbers way beyond what a mortgage lender is required to do. I rather scare somebody with a higher number. I'll go over things like seller adjustments for fuel. I'll remind them of their attorney on top of this. Seller paid taxes. Like I'll go above and beyond to scare them up front. I'd rather have them feel a little bit more uncomfortable up front than at the end. So those are one of the things I differentiate. And I would almost put a wager out there that like almost nobody that I'm competing against is talking about that stuff. It's not impossible. There will be a
Right.
few
So
there.
those
It's
are
not
what you're really
impossible.
talking about. You're talking about charges that are just inherent in the cost
Nothing to
of
do with
buying or
us.
selling. Buying a home has nothing to do with you. It's the same price no matter whomever you use. You go to a bank,
For
another
whatever
broker.
reason, not just mortgage people, but I think the majority of people who, especially when you do something transactional, like we're in a transactional business. The majority of people that are in there, whether they be mortgage people or agents, they want to take the path to release resistance. They want to tell their client everything is good. They want to make sure like, and maybe think they're protecting them. But at the end of the day, if you don't talk about those other charges and they show up to the closing table with $5,000 or $10,000 more, that had nothing to do with us. Really, it wasn't really my responsibility to disclose that. I'd rather tell them up front because I think those are things that you do. Like it's one of the things I do that's different from
Right. I do think that when you show up and as the conversation is happening, there really shouldn't be surprises, right? It should be, this is what the taxes are. This is why we're escrowing it, because again, we're dealing with, it's interesting that it is transactional, but a successful transaction will lead to referrals, will lead to like in
That's
a
the
high
goal.
interest in a high interest rate environment. People at some point need to refinance their house. So they're like, oh, I had a good experience with Peter and his team. I'm going to go back to Peter and his team. And that's a lot of why I'm actually doing the podcast is really about connecting, right? Because if I had a good experience or my clients had a good experience with you and vice versa, you're able to use my name. Oh, you're looking to buy a house. Talk to Danny. He's going to help you. And you're looking at, and it's not just right someone buying. It could be someone who's refinancing. I'm like, my goal is I want to work with experts, right? So you're clearly an expert in this field. It's not just. It's like you need the front end of the bicycle and the back end, right? So it's not just all that you know what loans are available. It's also how do you communicate with people and connecting with people and making them feel comfortable. And you do a great job of that.
Surrounding yourself around the right team is important. The synergy that we have when we work together between the attorney, the title company, the lender, like that. Sometimes people are skeptical of that because listen, there's bad people out there that would do what we do, right? But at the end of the day, if we know that they're going to have a better experience if we all work together and get on the same page. The bank attorney, the lender, all our network of individuals professionals that we work together with, or it's the client's going to win. You always say it's a team sport.
Yeah.
It's like you got to look at this as being a team sport. It's no, it's just teams that work well together are proved to win.
I mean, I also think that we both do this, but you're very good at looking towards it's not like Machiavellian, the ends justify the means. It's really more about our job is to protect the interests of our clients and do what our clients want. And it's not what I want, it's not what you want. And there's an example that I don't even know if you know this, but I might be spilling tea for you. But I was told it's not one of my deals, but one of someone in my office. You've been working for weeks or maybe months with a client. They're getting ready, they're clear to close. And then I heard that they found cash and all of a sudden now they're buying it in cash, right? And so you've done everything that you can, you've gotten the loan approved. And now guess what? They're not going to use you because they decided that they're going to do cash. It's unusual, but I think we
It
just had an
happens.
example. It just happened. And you know what? All you can do is hold your head up high and be like, if anything ever changes or whatever, I'm here for you. I'm here for your next people because you know what? That's what the client wanted to do. It happens to me, it happens to you, but it's like, how do you hold your head high and how do you walk away from that? Because you know what? There's only one Peter Costakis. Actually, there might be two because I think you're Peter Costakis the second. Like
Third.
the third, but your name is what you have, right? And so you've been working almost 30 years in this business. You come across a lot of the same people. You want people, when they hear that name, you want them to be like, he's a solid guy and he'll make it happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And to respond to what do you do when somebody walks away, you can't let it bother you. There might be an opportunity if you end well, even if it doesn't work out, for that person to still refer you to other people. This client, real nice guy, super nice guy. I'm not gonna hate him for it, but we've also seen and personally been on transactions where it's happened to other people and they don't react well to it. You can't get mad. You can't get mad. It's business. Every day is not exactly what you expect it to be. You can't count your commission before it closes. I mean, I think a lot of people are relying too much on it. Honestly, I don't count my commissions ever. I'm in the business of helping people, and the more people I help, I tend to do better. It's not, some people look to monitor their transactions and figure out how much money they want to make. I just want to help a whole bunch of people and I will end up making money.
So I have people that are always like, oh, how do you do budgeting? Or they want a budget. I'm like the anti-budgeter. Because my view is how many listings or sales I did last year really has no bearing on what I'm doing this year, right? I did 50 last year, or I did 52. It was 50, 26 and 26, right? That just happened. But like, I can't say, oh, I want to grow this by 10% and this by 15%. It doesn't really work like that. You just have to go do the right things. And you said something as well where every day's different. Every time the phone rings, you're a problem solver. You don't know what that person's going to bring when the phone rings, right? Like Give me an example of somebody buying something like the week before closing, like a high ticket item. They didn't realize, oh, you're not supposed to buy a car, or you're not supposed to lease, or even as ridiculous as my iPhone broke, and then I got a new loan on my iPhone. So, do you have like a story of what's the craziest thing that someone did, a day or so before closing that either prevented the closing or slowed it down?
People change jobs. So what I think it's also how you speak to clients. So you'll find that some loan officers just keep constantly having these problems. I just don't think that their process is right. But when you put a pre-approval letter out, you go over some of these things and put them out there, and you have these do's and don'ts. So if you get ahead of it early on in the stage and you red flag all the things you're not supposed to do, it helps, right? But it's not impossible. It's not foolproof. People still can act on their own. There's, people quit jobs, people change jobs. What I tell all the clients, and that's probably one of the number one things that we see, and although it doesn't happen like that often, it happens maybe a couple times a year. People don't realize that once the mortgage is done, that you're still going to verify employment 5 to 10 days before they're scheduled to close, and you have to keep updating it. If their closing gets pushed, it just has to happen. So sometimes people intentionally withhold it because they think it's going to be a problem. The reality is, all they had to do is say something, because you can start a new job, you can close on a loan, have a commitment for a new job, start it a month later or 2 months later, and still get the mortgage. But people are afraid and they assume it's going to kill their mortgage, but they just hurt themselves by not telling us. So communication is what I encourage with everybody. Keep it open and honest with me. Be transparent. If you want to buy something, ask me. If somebody wants to buy something, it's not going to hurt the deal. Let's say somebody wants to buy a new car. We have a client in process right now who just bought a new truck. Added a great deal to his monthly payment, but he qualified, no problem. So was it a big deal? No. But changing jobs is probably the number
Right.
one.
I mean, I had one of my clients where they were getting relocated, and we were probably like 45 days from close, maybe 30. He got relocated from upstate down here. He started his job. He didn't like it, and he probably flipped off his boss or something like that. So it would have been better to buy the house, then go get another job, right? As opposed to the issue with what he did was he ended up getting fired, or either walked off the job or got fired because he didn't like it. And you can't get a mortgage without the employment. So he didn't have a job, he couldn't get the mortgage, and and this was a veteran, and he had $50,000 deposit, and he couldn't get it back. It was one of the few times that I've actually had a client lose their deposit, but it's because they proactively did something to get themselves fired, which in the end of the day hurt this. The contract says that you lose it if you default. It was a default, basically. It turns out that the people at the end of the day ended up selling the house, I think, even for more money. But they really should have bought the house and either sold it right away. They would have lost less than 50, but that's not how it works. And it's sad. I mean, that's the thing, is like either our mistakes or our customers' mistakes are affect real people. And I think that's why when you also said the thing that you don't count your money, I don't really either until it's in the bank, because even at the closing table, sometimes things happen, right? There's a problem with a broken this or a broken that, and there might be an impasse between a buyer and the seller. And I've seen you multiple times. I've multiple times where you're like, you know what? I'm going to pay for it. And it comes while you and I it had nothing to do with us. Sometimes we just do what we do to move things along, because in the end of the day, it's about people having a good experience. And do you really want a deal to go sour, even though it had nothing to do with you or me, where you're still going to give 1,000, 1,500, whatever it is, because we're in the business of we're trying to make people sad. It's customer service is more, I'm in the customer service of finding and closing, and you're in the customer service of getting the money so that they can do that. You're dealing with people, and it's very stressful.
So I say that all the time, is that those are called business decisions, right? It, they're real money that we give up, right? It's not monopoly money, it's real money. And I think the other thing when you make these business decisions to give somebody a concession, again, whether it's a free extension or free extensions for rate, and it's again not their fault. Sometimes it is their fault, but again, we're in the business of customer service and helping people out and creating this experience. Like it's to me, if they don't have an experience that's better than what they imagined the mortgage process to be, I failed. I need them to be walk out of this from start to finish. And that's why I talk about things in the beginning. Like I want to guide them through the whole process. That's why it's really important for me to talk about how much higher closing costs can potentially be that have nothing to do with us, so that the end experience is not awful for them. Like you being off by thousands of dollars is shocking to a new home buyer that expected to have a little bit more money. But these business decisions, much like I said before, and you asked me the question of how when you make things so smooth and client doesn't even know, and I said I tell the client, it's the same thing with the business decision. These are opportunities for you to gain more referrals right there. If you give something, you let them know that it's not monopoly money, it's real money. You gave them $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever it might be. You're welcome. Don't worry about it. I appreciate your thanking me, but even better, introduce me to somebody else. And I always like to be introduced to somebody else because I feel like the introduction is a little bit more impactful than just giving my number. I think it goes a little longer way.
Well, that's kind of my point of being the connector, right? You're connecting with people in the beginning of the whole process, the beginning, middle, and end. I enjoy closings in your office, and it's not because I'm there to pick up a check, because guess what? I'm getting that check anyway. Why? Because for people that drink, I've turned it into a celebration and at toasting and cheering. And you know that I bring shot glasses in. I try to bring decent booze in, booze that I would never pay for myself. I try to give because I want it to be like ceremonial, and that we do like a shot of bourbon, whiskey, tequila, the closing table, because it's also we take pictures. I send it to the clients. We can use it for social media. We tag each other. It's an experience. And then it's like people see that and then they want more. But the other thing I wanted to say is that when with you feeling that when things go south, what I've seen what people do for you is that there are other people in the room besides the client. There's the seller in the room. Well, that seller might be buying something down the road. There are lawyers, there's multiple lawyers in the room. There's the buyer's lawyer, the seller's lawyer, there's the bank attorney, there's title people, there's family. They're all seeing what you're doing. And I've heard people say, like, you got to work with Peter because this is what he does. Or if there's going to be a problem, this is what Peter does. And so I do think that the connections that you do is based off of just being a genuine person. Like you and I are wearing polo shirt. This is us, right? We're not suit people, fancy. You know what? But what we are people is that if I called you on a Saturday night, unless you're at a Pearl Jam concert or something, or Wu-Tang Clan, you're never picking up the phone. That phone's probably turned off. But you're going to pick up because I'm on the line with one of our clients that either is a new client, an old client. How do we work with them? And those connections really, I think, help drive our business.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine who I actually went to college with works with me. He's one of my partners on the team. We always say it all the time. You get the least amount of referrals or make the least amount of impact when the deal is perfectly smooth. Not to say that wasn't really thought out, because listen, my process is amazing. I know that I have a much better process than other lenders. I'm not saying I'm the best lender out there. I think that would be a little arrogant. However, I'm top in terms of like thoughtful process from beginning to end. It's really thought out and it's always improving. But it's the challenges that people recognize you for. The problems that you solve. You mentioned at the closing table. I love when the closings are in my office also. Many reasons. I love your experience, okay? Because that's so much fun. The client's so happy, they're thrilled, that you can see how they feel special, right? So that's amazing. People lose sight of what we do and the impact of them. The client is the priority here. I love still being able to work at my computer, go back and forth. I don't have to. I'm all about efficiency, and that's why I Zoom with clients all day, because I'm face to face in a camera all day long, because I can do one after another, after another, after another, and make real connections. So I'm still in my office. And then the third is being able to solve that problem at the closing table, because closings don't always go smooth. Shock? Yeah, there's problems at closings. Who didn't print here or there, or who needs to make a correction on the closing disclosure or whatever. And I can fix that really easily, being right outside or inside the closing.
Exactly. So, where do you think, we're 2024, where do you see the future of lending? And if you had to have the crystal ball, what do you think is going to be different, or what are we going to be doing more of? And where do you see the future for your job, maybe my job, or something like that?
So I was going to say both are our jobs, because I think it goes hand in hand. I think the business is shrinking on between lenders and realtors. I think that the better lenders and the better realtors are going to be capturing more market share. So it's really easy to figure out or look up somebody who does business and somebody who doesn't by reviews. Like you have tons of reviews, I have tons of reviews. That means something. Yeah, I think we're going to see some cycles. I think in our area, prices are going to continue to skyrocket. I don't think that see that easing up. If the rates do go down a percent lower right now, we're going to see buyers, sellers open up and start selling a little bit more. It's going to bring a lot more buyers to the table as well too, because those rates are still attractive, but the prices will go up. But I do see technology playing into things. Like, it's just so much easier to keep track of somebody and have your systems automated. But I think there's going to be less people in our business, and those less people doing just going to have a bigger piece of the pie.
Definitely. I think the only constant is change, right? And you need to be able to adapt, right? You
That's
need to
it.
adapt to changes in the market and not get all like deer in the headlights and just react. It's like, you know, tell me it's problem solving, right? If you're going to put a new obstacle in front of me, then we're going to strategically think about it and then come up with a plan on how to work through it to again satisfy our clients. I mean, ultimately, if on your side, if people that are buying houses, if it doesn't work for them, if they're not communicated and we don't make it easy for them, then they may not do it. It's hard to say that exactly because you do need a house, but you don't have to buy a house. You can rent a house and all other types of things. But I think if you just put our clients first, it's things are always going to change. And of course, we're going to be using technology and doing things a different way. But again, it's putting people first. I think that's the best. I know I see you do it all the time. I know that I'm texting you at all hours and I'm like, let's go, Pete, but like I need you to repeat and repeat. But ultimately, it's about getting information to our clients so that they can make decisions, especially in the seller's market right now, right? Where if you're a buyer and repping a buyer, things have to happen on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and Sundays where maybe in a buyer's market, you could wait till Monday because nobody's going to take that house. And now I need to have offers that go in. I need to connect with you on the offer and say, oh, if you have any questions, call Peter. He'll vouch for them and all this other stuff. Those things help me be a better agent, help my clients win more houses. And so, again, as you said, it's everyone working as a team to try to do what's best for our clients. And I think that is not changing, I don't think, right?
Yeah, no, and I think the role of a mortgage person, as you're seeing things change recently, is at least as far as I'm concerned, in the past couple of years, I think probably ever since COVID, I took the approach that I'm on your side more than I've ever been before, and helping you get it's because it's been a seller's market for the past 4 years. And the way I provide value, and I explain to the clients as well too, is I need to prepare you. You need to do what I'm asking you to do, because we are essentially going to a war, right? You need to be prepared. You can't go and not be prepared, which means like I need not just the application, but your documents, everything. And I explain the reason is because a good mortgage person has a really key role in helping you get your offer accepted. Danny's going to go out and take you, show you a house. You're going to go it. He's highly skilled at negotiating, but 9 times out of 10 in the past 4 years, listing agent calls me, and I need to be ready and let them know that you as a client have done everything I asked. We've reviewed everything. you're ready to play. And I need to make them feel very comfortable without stuttering, without hesitation. I need to make them feel very comfortable that this is the transaction they want to take because this is the one that's going to close. So that's a key part of it, which I enjoy. Again, I got into this business for helping people, and I feel like aside from just providing the commodity of a mortgage and the experience, that to me has been like such an added cool benefit these past couple of years where I can actually be a part of helping somebody get an offer accepted.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we're not like I don't feel neither of us are in sales. We're in customer
I
service. That's what we're
hate
doing.
the term sales.
Well, no, because you're not selling because
Helping
ultimately
people. Yeah.
people are coming to you that need mortgages. And so your job is to make that a great experience for them. And, you know, you don't have a rack of things. I mean, obviously, you're going to pick the products that make the most sense. That's not selling. It's customizing packages that are available to properly meet the needs of your clients. You know,
Consulting.
I'm not pushing people into a house. If you don't want that house, that's fine. We'll go find another house. You
Never
tell me
force
the
anybody.
houses that you want, and then my job is to help you get the house that you want, not the house that I want, the house that you want. And so it's the same thing with you. So ultimately, I do think that, you know, we have to get more skilled and more honed and sharpen our pencil on how to provide the best service in this environment, in a high interest rate environment with high purchase prices for people who huge purchase, and making them feel comfortable that they can, and not to push people in houses that they can't afford. I always say it's not the house that you can afford. It's not the house that, like, you might get a pre-approval from someone for $1 million. But when you see what $1 million costs you between taxes, you might be choking and only eating ramen noodle and mac and cheese. You might say, you know what? That's too much. I want an 800,000. So let's look because it's not what you can afford. It's what you choose to afford, because some people want to take trips. Some people there's so many other needs. And that's our job, is to let them know that we're here for them, and we're going to talk about everything that's there, you know, how to help them get to the closing table properly.
Yes. So we may not be social media influencers per se, but we are influencers and we sit there and guide them and help them. You know, I've said this many times to a client, like I might be intense and I might have a lot of energy and sometimes my ADD will go bananas, but I will tell people flat out, I'm not a high pressure person at all. I'm not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. This is a discussion. I'm going to help you. When I treat going over numbers seriously, going over options, doing what I'm supposed to do. Too many people in the mortgage business are just order takers. Client says, I want this. Okay, they don't even offer anything else. You know, when somebody comes to me, it's part of our job description, I would think, and way back, I don't know if it still is, to offer options, right? You're supposed to offer options. You're supposed to get people to think. Maybe they go back to exactly what they asked you for in the beginning, but at least you have them thinking. But often I've encouraged people to do things that they never planned on doing. You know, I tell people early on, these are general numbers up front. You're pre-approved. Go out with Danny, go find a house. When you find the house, when you identify the house, based on the condition of the house, based on the price of the house, based on a whole lot of different factors, then we're going to narrow it down. Then we're going to meet again, go over numbers, go over options, and then figure it out. Are the kitchens good? Bathroom? Are you going to do renovation on it? Do you want to get to 20%? Pay PMI? A lot of times PMI, people think like, oh, it's a bad thing, I'm going to avoid it. It's not that bad. And it's a lot cheaper than going to get a renovation loan. So you have to provide these options and get people to think.
Well, with that, we've been doing this for a while. I'm sure we could do this 3 times as long. You're a wealth of information. I really appreciate your time, Peter. So again, Peter, thank you for spending the time with us today. It's been insightful talking to you. I'm sure we could have done this for 3 hours, although that's probably called like a bar session, right? But again, everyone, this is the adventures of a real estate broker with Daniel Berger. Today, our special panelist was Peter Costakos, the mortgage guy. Thank you very much, Peter. We appreciate your insights, and thank you very much.
Appreciate you, Danny. Thank you.
Until our next episode, again, it's the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. Thanks for joining me on the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York Realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.